This is my mom's Dell Inspiron 5502. It's from early 2021. It is a mid-range, I'd say $700 to $800-ish range laptop. And overall, it's pretty mediocre. Sorry, Mom. It's mediocre, but it gets the job done. For specs, we have a Intel Core i5 1135G7. So that's 4-core, 8-thread with max boost clocks of 4.2 gigahertz and a sustained all-core of about 2.4 gigahertz. It's only about a 30-watt part, so it's not turning crazy heat, but it's not actually doing a lot to begin with. For graphics, it has Intel Iris Xg integrated graphics with I think 80 compute units. It has 12 gigabytes of 3200 megahertz RAM. They are unfortunately the X16 SODIMMs, so really crappy for gaming, but it's not like you're going to be doing much gaming on this laptop to begin with. Either way, we're going to go ahead and swap them out later on in the video, so stick around. For storage, it has a 500 gigabyte NVMe running at 3000 megabytes per second read and about 1000 megabytes per second write. So not too bad for what it does. It's a Samsung NVMe, so at least you're getting a decent part there. Intel Wi-Fi 6, a 53 watt hour battery, a very lackluster 1080p display, 60 hertz, 230-ish nit brightness, not very bright, a built-in 720p webcam, and then for I/O we have a power jack, a full-size HDMI, USB 3.0, and a USB Type-C. Now, this processor is capable of Thunderbolt, but unfortunately this laptop does not have Thunderbolt capabilities. Not like you would really want to hook an eGPU up to this, but you can't through the Type-C. Either way, I think I'm going to make a video where I do hook an eGPU up to this, just to show that it can be done, and then maybe set some world records in like Time Spy because I feel like it. On the right side, we have a dual audio jack, so headphones, microphone, you know, all that jazz. Another USB 3.0, and the world's crappiest micro SD card reader. For a touchpad, it's kind of offset with the spacebar. A little weird. I don't know why they didn't just center it on the laptop, but I'm sure some people have priorities for that. It works okay. It's kind of spongy, but again, mid-range laptop. The keyboard has okay, but very dim lighting on it. And then for the power button, there is a fingerprint reader built into it. Chassis flex is fairly gratuitous, but it is a 15-inch laptop, so you kind of lose out on structural rigidity where you start making it longer. One thing that annoys me the most about this laptop is because you have so much screen flex, the screen actually ends up touching this ridge right here and leaves a line across the center of the screen, so kind of an afterthought if you ask me. The screen does open to about 140-ish degrees, and it does prop up the inside of the laptop like, you know, some Asus laptops do. It's such a low wattage part, it doesn't really get hot to begin with. Like, this laptop does not get hot. If you're ever worried about your laptop getting hot in your lap, this one doesn't really get hot. It really doesn't boost at all. It's not a very high-end part. It just does its job, and it works. That's really all I can say about it. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut it down here. Just press and hold the power button until it turns off. And then we're gonna go ahead and flip it over and take a look at how serviceable this laptop is. So now that it's fully powered down, we're gonna go ahead and close it up, flip it over, and take it apart. So this laptop has 9 PH0 screws on the bottom of it. So tiny screws. They are Phillips heads, so they are very easy to strip out. So make sure you take extra care when you're taking these out to not strip them out. Make sure if you're gonna be working on your laptop to use a decent set of bits, like get something from iFixit or from a reputable tool company. This one is from Cornwell. So again, we have 9 of these tiny PH0 screws. These 2 up here on the top are caged, and they push the chassis away so that you can get something in there to start splitting the chassis apart. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take out all the other screws first. So now that I have the first 7 screws out, when I go to take out these last 2 screws, you'll see the chassis start cracking apart. So at this point, you just take something plastic and insert it in the chassis to start splitting it apart. And once you can get your fingers in there, and start grabbing at it, split the case. This back panel you can get off of AliExpress if you need to replace it. The chassis you can get off of AliExpress if you need to replace it. It comes with the keyboard, or at least I think it comes with the keyboard, but I know you can get a replacement keyboard for this laptop if you need to. So first things first, the battery, something that everybody loves to hate on with newer laptops. It's not glued in. You can replace this battery. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws holding it down. Take out the 5 screws, unplug the connector, and you can replace the battery. If you need to service the touchpad for any reason, you would have to take the battery out, but obviously you can take the battery out. The speakers are replaceable independently of each other. The RAM is socketed, so you can replace the RAM. The Wi-Fi card is also socketed, so you can replace the Wi-Fi card. The SSD is also serviceable, and it has a neat little bracket, which I'll show you how that works in a second here, so that you can put a longer or shorter SSD in there. The second SSD slot is kind of annoying in that if you want to use a SSD in this, you have to buy a like $9 little tab off of like Amazon to screw down here, and then you can put another SSD in there, but I'll have that linked in the video description. The power connector is also socketed so that you can replace just the power jack if you need to. All of the IO on this side is on a daughter board, so if you need to replace any of this IO, like the headphone jack, USB, or the SSD or the SD card reader, you can replace that. The CMOS battery is kind of a weird little guy going on here, but if you need to reset the CMOS, you can just unplug the CMOS battery right here. The fan, just like everything else, is serviceable. It has a really basic single heat pipe cooler going on here. Really, the only things that you would need to replace the motherboard on this laptop for is the HDMI port, the Type-C, or the Type-A on this side. But neatly enough, everything on this laptop that is like a serviceable part has a QR code on it. Like you can see all of these QR codes running around. All these little stickers are QR codes, and they all have part numbers on them. So if you needed to get those part numbers, say call up Dell and get that part number, they might be able to send you it. I'm not 100% sure. I know a lot of parts for this laptop that might be damaged you can get off of AliExpress, so that's a really nice feature. And obviously the battery is very much replaceable. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace the RAM, which is what I came in here for. Now, you can't just get any RAM for a Dell laptop like this because the BIOS doesn't have any settings in it to enable an XMP. You have to get 3200 megahertz RAM that is going to run out of the box at 3200 megahertz. So here I have some SK Hynix. They're both 8GB sticks. They are X8 SODIMMs. You can tell they're X8 SODIMMs because they have memory modules on both sides of the RAM stick. So I'm just gonna go ahead and peel pack this, spread the little tabs, and pop out the factory RAM. Now you can tell this is a X16 version because it only has memory modules on one side of the stick. Again, this is 12 gigabytes of RAM. It's crappy, cheap RAM that I just hate that Dell does this, but either way, every laptop manufacturer's kind of been cheaping out on this recently. Stick the new RAM in there, just wedge it in there like that, press down, wedge it in there, press down. So that's the RAM replaced. Now, if we needed to service anything else in this laptop, the screws are no longer the PH0 screws that you use to take the back panel off. They're actually PH1 screws. So you see this bit is tighter in there. So if we want to replace this SSD here, just go ahead and take out the screw here, place it off to the side, remove the SSD. So say if you were upgrading it to this Longboy SSD, obviously there's a bit of a size discrepancy there from where the screw hole is. You just pop out this little tab here, and then pop it in over here. Insert the SSD. And screw it back down. Now, I'm not going to use this SSD in this laptop. I think the standard SSD that comes in it is perfectly fine. Although my mom curiously has a 500 gigabyte SD card here in this little SD card reader, and this SD card reader, when I was doing some testing on it, is depressingly slow. It runs at like 30 megabytes per second. So try not to boot any games off the SD card reader on this laptop if that is something that you're using this laptop for, which I really can't imagine. The gaming performance in this laptop is abysmal. And that's how you would replace the SSD on this laptop. Now, say your fan is making noise, you need to replace it. Luckily for you, this fan is very easy to replace. Just take out the 2 screws, kind of unroute the wire here, and the fan comes right out. Obviously disconnect the connector, but I don't want to disconnect any connectors in fear of, if you don't have to disconnect it, don't disconnect it, because all this stuff can get very delicate. If you want to replace your thermal paste, it's literally just 4 screws. I'm not going to replace the thermal paste on this because I know what happens if you put better thermal paste on a laptop. It starts getting really hot because it boosts all the time. I mean, this is a very low power part, but I don't want to disturb that at all. If you want to replace the Wi-Fi card, all it is 1 simple screw here. And just like that, the Wi-Fi card comes right out. There's 2 little antenna wires here. I don't want to take them off because you could damage them while taking them off. If you don't need to take them off, it's better if you just don't take them off. If you were replacing the Wi-Fi card for whatever reason and you damaged the old one taking it off, then that wouldn't be a problem. Your new one's going to be fine. So if you wanted to replace the charging port on this, all you would have to do is take the lid off, because you'd have to get the hinges out of the way to then get the charge port out and then feed the cable from it out. Charge port is only about 3 inches long. Super easy there. If you want to replace the speakers, they're literally just held on by little rubber O-rings here. If you just want to replace the speaker, just pull up on it, comes right out. What's nice about this design is that it reduces vibration. So if this was actually bolted in, you might have sound vibration go through the chassis and cause like some rattling noises. So by them using just little rubber isolators to hold this down, keeps the vibrations down. It's the same way on the other speaker. So yeah, guys, that's the Dell Inspiron 15 5502. Really easy laptop to work with. If you were interested in buying a laptop like this, honestly, I don't think it's that great of a laptop. I think the AMD version of it is probably better because it just has so many more cores for the same price. But if you wanted to buy something that is serviceable and the company will be around in a few years, this is very much serviceable. So let's go ahead and pop back on the back panel and flip it over, start it up, and run some benchmarks just to show the improvements of just replacing that RAM. So when you're going to put back on the back panel, you want to make sure that you tip in the front edge first. Just get that fully in there before going anywhere else, because you don't want this edge to be up above the lip here. If you were here, you could really tell it. It's hard to see on camera, but there is a lip right here that you want to make sure that the front edge is underneath of before you start clicking the rest of the case together. Make sure you switch your screwdriver bit back to the PH0 that you used to take it apart with. Tighten up those rear caged screws first. Make sure you're pushing down pretty snugly while you're tightening these screws, because again, you just don't want to strip out any of these screws. Because they're Phillips head, they are very easy to strip. That is not something you want to deal with. And just like that, it's all back together. We can flip it over, open it up, and turn it on. So whenever you replace the RAM on a Dell, it'll always tell you, it'll give you an alert, oh, the amount of memory has changed. Just go ahead and hit continue. It's not that big a deal. So I'm just going to go over a quick rundown of what kind of performance benefits that somebody could expect from going from X16 RAM to X8 RAM on this system. In Firestrike, we saw a 30% uplift in performance from 2100 to 3300 points. It's not a great score, but it's pretty impressive when you consider that kind of gain. In the Heaven benchmark, we saw a performance uplift of 15 FPS from 27 to 42. In Time Spy, we saw an uplift of, again, 30% from 1100-ish to 1321. So maybe not exactly 30%, but it looks good on paper. I went ahead and ran PC Mark. And there wasn't a huge benefit in PC Mark, maybe because in workloads that aren't gaming, the X16 RAM doesn't, bottleneck you as much. But it looks like it saw a decent performance uplift in the essentials like startup, video conferencing, and web browsing. Web browsing specifically, and that's pretty much all this laptop gets used for. So I'm happy to see an improvement there. My mom's not doing any kinds of photo editing or productivity stuff. I mean, maybe some spreadsheets, but did it see a spreadsheet uplift? Not really, but again, that's just kind of the stuff my mom's gonna be using this laptop for. So like, I like to see a little bit of performance uplift in the things that I feel like having the better RAM will help her out, because, she came to me and said, it feels slow. So hopefully replacing the RAM will help out the performance on this laptop just a bit, because we're not working with a lot here. With only 4 cores and 8 threads, you can't expect that much from this laptop. But it is an everyday person's laptop, and like I've been saying before and again, it gets the job done. So if you like this video, go ahead and leave a like. Get subscribed for future random laptop upgrade stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and shoot a video on this one where we use a 6900 XT to hopefully dominate the 3D Mark benchmarks high scores, because, well, I feel like it. Why not? Let's go ahead and get subscribed for that. Leave a comment on if you were surprised by how upgradable this laptop is. I was surprised. I'm surprised that my mom just kind of bought this laptop and it just so happened to be so serviceable. Leave us a like while you're exiting out of this video. And like always, we'll see you next time.